Hi everyone, I'm doing this vlog because I want to help someone and I'd like to ask you to help that person also. A couple weeks ago I had reporter Janet Phelan on my show with Dr. Fettgather. Janet is an investigative reporter and she specializes in particular in the issue of conservatorship or guardianship. In case you don't know what this is, it's basically where, let's say somebody says that, such and such person is not in a state of mind to be able to handle their own affairs. Maybe it's an old person or someone with a mental illness or disability or whoever. And so they're brought to the court who appoints a psychiatrist who then invariably finds them not competent and then puts them under guardianship or conservatorship. So the guardian is then responsible for that person and all their affairs. And the problem with this is, while it might seem like a good idea, the process gets abused. And the people who are professional conservators or guardians, often they go from one conservatee to the next and basically take all their money and then don't take very good care of them. They stick them in institutions or nursing homes where they're neglected and abused, and often, in fact, killed even, I would say, through medical neglect or worse. So they go from one to the other. And to add to this problem is that there's a lot of corruption in the courts and in the system, and there's a lack of oversight, and there's the Professional Fiduciaries Bureau where they're supposed to be overseeing this, but they're not doing anything to help either. And if you want to know more about this, you should go to Janet's website, janetphelan.com, and read some of the articles that she's written there. So it's basically a racket, and it's a lot like with the CAS or CPS, like they get your kids and you never get them back, it doesn't matter what you do. It's like that, but for old people or people with disabilities. And sometimes it's used just as a revenge on somebody who has no disability at all. Like someone's in the middle of a messy divorce, they want to get their wife out of the way, or their soon-to-be ex-wife out of the way, and they'll just like get her put under conservatorship. And it doesn't matter if you then go and get opinions from other psychiatrists who say that you're competent. The court will just discount that and only listen to the report from the court-appointed psychiatrist. So the case that I'd like to talk to you about is the one of Dr. Robert Fettgather. He's a psychologist from California, and he has an adult son who has Down syndrome. His son's called David. And when David turned 18, Dr. Fettgather was under the mistaken impression that he was obligated to put him under guardianship. He was told that he had to, but that's not true. So he and his ex-wife hired a guardian, and they had a lot of problems with the guardian. The guardian wasn't taking good care of him. And Dr. Fettgather became an activist for disabled people's rights. And meanwhile, he was trying to get his own son's rights respected. That guardian ended up quitting, probably to avoid getting sued, and was replaced by another. And his son was basically left, and still is, left in institutional care where his needs are neglected and he's abused. And it's a horrible thing for anyone to see that happening to their beloved family member, whether it's the grandmother or the mother or an adult child with Down syndrome. And I find it especially sad with a person with Down syndrome because their IQ is lower, as you know, but they tend to have other gifts. They tend to be especially loving and also trusting, and so they're in a way like really childlike. So to abuse him like that, it's like abusing a child. So Dr. Fettgather has been trying to get something done about this, but because of the way the system's corrupt, they've turned everything against him, and now he's actually being targeted. And he's not the only one. Many people who've spoken out against what goes on with the conservatorship racket have been targeted in many different ways. And what they're doing to Dr. Fettgather is they're now trying to take away his license as a psychologist and sending him for psychiatric evaluation. And it's the California State Psychology Board that's doing this, even though it concerns a complaint between employees and an employer. His employee is launching a complaint against him, which normally wouldn't be dealt by the board, not in this way. But it's like they're using it as a way to get revenge on him. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, please look at this article that Janet wrote on Activist Post. California State Psychology Board launches psychiatric probe of activist psychologist. And you see here she mentions the Psychology Board employee Gina Bayliss. Well, if you read this and also listen to the interview that I did with Janet and Dr. Fettgather, which I'm going to post, and I'll give you the link at the end of this video, please call the State Psychology Board on Dr. Fettgather's behalf and make a complaint and see if you can talk to Gina Bayliss and tell them that this is totally unacceptable and that you know what they're doing. So the number is 1-866-503-3221. So please circulate this information. Let people know about conservatorship and about what they're doing to Dr. Fettgather and his son David. And please call that number and put a little pressure on them and let them know that the public knows and that, you know, the public cares and they just can't get away with this. So thanks for listening to me, and let's hope that this helps. And I'll see you next time.